now we can review, reevaluate, and reflect upon what it is that we're seeing, because we are mirroring ourselves.
Stop, storyboard it. Stop, visualize it, dream board it. You're only allowed to say, these are the rules. Only good, not bad. Give me the 10 reasons why, not the 10 reasons why not. In the room, 52 Jokers Wild.
And I think even just with the microphones, it should be okay. That should be, just that a bit closer. It gives that little bit of...
Well, you've noticed me moving my microphone, have you? You couldn't hear me before this. No.
Well, it's funny, even just a couple of inches away, there's a change in the quality of the sounds, which is quite interesting.
No, it's what's coming out of my mouth, hasn't the quality is not changing. It's getting worse and worse. It's the content that's coming out of my mouth is just drivel. We just need to
contextualize
rubbish.
it a little bit further, don't we?
It needs
Create some kind of meaning out of it.
Exactly.
Well, in this episode, which is episode 41, and we're going to put a hashtag in front of that, hashtag 041, we're going to talk about content and context and see if we can actually get some kind of meaning out of all of this.
If you can contextualize that for me so I can go off my rant and have some meaningful content that can be contextualized in that sort of sense. No, I don't know what contextualize even means. No, I probably do, but I'd probably need an English definition.
Yeah, well, I think what we started to look at first was content, and of course, what surprised me initially was it's in a state of peaceful happiness, being contented. It wasn't really the terminology that I was actually thinking of. There's satisfy someone, being content, and a state of satisfaction is another content. But what we were actually really looking at is media content, or any kind of content, which could be we're discussing a book, we're doing these videos, we're producing plenty of content. Now, one of the areas that we actually did discover, one of the meanings was it says that sometimes it's it's something contained, usually in the plural, in a jar, like the cookie jar. The contents of the cookie jar is lots of biscuits. All the content of a drawer is lots of scripts in our particular meaning of what we're hoping to do. Scripts in drawers.
No knickers in drawers.
No knickers in drawers. Just scripts in drawers.
Hidden treasure in drawers if we go back to a previous episode, but we're not going to contextualize that for anybody. They'll have to go find the episode in question and see what we're talking about. Or listen to what we're talking about.
Listen to what we're talking about. So then we've got context. And it's a noun. It says the circumstances that form the setting for an event, statement, or idea, and in terms of which it can be fully understood, which at the beginning of this, you couldn't contextualize this because you couldn't understand what we were talking about when we talked about contextualize, which is a bit of a...
They can't understand, we can't understand. It's coming out of my own mouth and I don't understand.
Well, I think contextualize is where we're basically trying to look at something and give it some kind of meaning. So if we're looking at a story that's told, in my case, because I keep talking about it and it keeps irritating you, in the feudal times, you're kind of going, I can't contextualize that because it has no meaning to what I'm doing today in our particular culture.
And if I was traveling through time, I wouldn't be going to the feudal times. I'd be back in the prehistoric times, or maybe the Egyptian times, or maybe pre-Atlantean times. I certainly wouldn't be choosing the feudal times.
Feudal times. Nah, it's a dirty old place. But the interesting thing about it is I'm reading a book by a friend of mine at the moment, and one of the difficulties I'm having is I can't place where it is. I have no sense of the setting. The language, and it's an interesting story, but they haven't actually given me a history of the place or how this place, the settlement, that how it came about. They're just telling me a story as though I already know this kind of information.
Now, what's jumping into my mind in the context of giving courses on possibly screenwriting or book writing or script writing, you're saying they didn't fill in the background. They didn't give us the backstories. They didn't use enough language or descriptive language to place the setting. So then we could relate to these individuals on their journey and their stories But now I can't picture this. Where are you in feudal times? Are you hanging out the castle? Or are you in some little hut in a field somewhere? Are you, so you have to put in the context. You have to be descriptive in your narrative.
There are plenty of Anglo-Saxon names being used, but there are also some sort of European names being used. So I'm not sure whether, I don't feel that it's in England, but it's not necessarily in Europe, although there's a lot of European sort of
It's
ideas.
out of place. It's out of time.
It's out of place.
It hasn't been researched properly. It hasn't got the backfill story. It's got low budget CGI going on in your brain. You haven't filled in the gaps. It hasn't excited you enough to want to fill in the gaps. You're reading it because it's a friend's book, but you as a lecturer are going, here's what's missing, as opposed to what's in. It's what's out is drawing your attention.
Well, I know that when I wrote my two of my novels, one was set in the future and the other one was set in the contemporary times, I still had to do enough research of the area that it was set in to make sure that there was enough going on that those people that lived there could connect to it. Now, obviously, if you're dealing with something that's kind of in the past, well, people have memories of certain things, and older people will say, well, we never actually did that. So any terminology that's being used or activities, you need to explain what the processes are so that the modern audience can, again, contextualize it. For example, I've got here a telephone that is a dial-up telephone. And, when somebody saw and heard me using it, they went, oh, that brings back memories of when I was a kid. And they imagine themselves in their granny's house having to dial the, 3 numbers to get the operator and ask them if they could connect you to such and such or a collect call or something like that. It just reminded them of the past. But would people from, let's say, the 1970s, if they actually were presented with an iPhone, they'd kind of go, oh my God, is that in Star Trek? And they kind of go, it's not quite in Star Trek because their one's flipped out.
We're just missing the beam me up and beam me down. It's as Star Trek as it's going to get, except for the beam me up, beam me down. That bit, no, it is beaming you up and down. It's the imagery it's beaming up and down. Your content, your GPS, if you think of these little heart monitor type watches people are now wearing, it's actually beaming up and down your entire vital statistics. It's actually acting like that other thing they were carrying around in Star Trek, which was a medical the bit and bob. It's now incorporated that in. They can tell the state of your health and wealth at a point in time where you are in the day, down to your heart rate. And even in this COVID-19 times, it's beaming enough of you up and down to have the making of you and your circumstance. And if you beam it back down, they're now saying they're going to use there's enough education that they can actually nearly have a drone come in and give you that little heart, boom. If they could deliver to you faster than an ambulance getting there, with enough of a video of a doctor talking you through what to do on site, because he has enough of your vital statistics to direct you in this nearly real-time scenario. So there's an awful lot of, well, that's contextualizing the future and the present, and that's interesting. Now, you touched on something that just reminded me of another conversation this morning, which is this content and contextualizing. Are you content? Are you happy? And this individual is trying to move from country 1 to country 2, and he's finding it very, very difficult. And we touched on this in the previous podcast before. And if he ever gets to listen to these, he'll probably give out to me for using them. But I'm just contextualizing a story. I'm just using some knowledge or recent history or information to form an opinion and contextualize this example. And he can't see where he's living or going to live in this country, and therefore can't let go of where he is. They're talking about, well, the economy is bad over there, but it's worse in Ireland. I go, well, where is worse? What are you talking about? Oh, because the economy is not great in Ireland, you may not be able to get a job. I said, we don't have one there. Why? So you won't have one here either. But you'll feel safer here, or you perceive yourself as going to feel safer here, and your family will be happier when you get here. The problem was he couldn't contextualize where the here was. He was generalizing it to be an economy as bad as the one he's in, but he doesn't know what house he's going to be moving to. And therefore, he's not going to have a job, even though he doesn't have one anyway. And the things are going to be worse. I'm going, no, stop. Storyboard it. Stop. Visualize it. Dream board it. You're putting all the what ifs and the why nots in. We talked about this in the previous podcast. You're only allowed to say, these are the rules. Only good, not bad. Give me the 10 reasons why, not the 10 reasons why not. What does success look like in your move? You can move in the morning, rent something. You can be living in a £2.5 million house for cheaper than the rent that you rent out your own house. You can go in the morning. He keeps on putting admin in the way of a decision he doesn't even know what it looks like. So he was quite quickly, the last couple of minutes was, is it a big house or is it a small house? And he was going, well, you're living in a 1,500 square foot house now and it's too tight, no room for growth. It has to be bigger. You don't like living in a street, you don't want any neighbours, therefore it's detached. Do you want to have an acre for the pony for the kid later on? Yes, he does. Does he want to have his own home office? Yes, he does. Does he want the wife to have a little bit of distance between them? It's now 3,000 square foot, not 1,500 square foot. You can't afford that in the city centre up in Dublin. It has to be down the country, whether you like it or not. But you now have a drive. I says, has it a septic tank? Because it needs an acre just to have a septic tank. He says, no, I want to be connected to the mains. I says, now you're in a rural village because you're not up a hill. I says, you're in 3,000 square foot in a rural village, in a community that basically is a 3,000 square foot something. Is it old? Is it new? He says, I don't like the thing since 1970. I said, no, he says he's already given out about the colour of the walls and he doesn't like moving into these dirty old dingy houses. I said, that's paint and plaster. That is not a reason not to buy a period house in the country with 3 foot thick walls, a horse box, in his own grounds for the price of a 1-bed apartment in London. Why are you coming up with all these why nots? You already know what it looks like, and it's not where you are, and it's more likely here. And you can move there tomorrow.
Yeah, is he English or is he Irish?
He's Irish originally with an Asian wife. Now he knows who he is if he listens to this thing in the future, but I think he'd be okay with it in the sense of, because I watched myself in slow motion as I stood back, and I could see his face getting worse and worse in terms of. Then I suddenly realised, I'm not acting in a coaching capacity. Am I belittling his efforts to date and his frustrations to date that he hasn't moved from A to B? When actually all my intent is to, if I can help you visualize it, you'll move faster, and all these blockers you're putting in the way will suddenly become a tick list of things I can't wait to get done. And the biggest, you're going to love this, the biggest thing that popped out immediately was he'd stepped ahead and put one of his little apartment in a bad area up last month, and it didn't even get a viewing, and no one wants it, even though there seems to be a massive demand for space in London.
Yeah.
It was in a bad area and no one wants to move there, and that's why he was getting rid of it in the first place. And I says, but that's 20% of your portfolio. The 80% is the one you're sitting in. You're actually risking everything to get rid of the shitty piece you can't move, where the bit that will move faster is the one that you're in that will give you the 80% reward. So I says, no, you don't even have to move. Get your arse out of there and physically move yourself and rent someone in there. And whatever rent you get, you've already moved to a £2 million house in Mount Juliet at a cheaper rent than where you are. And you can do that in the morning by just swapping who's in what while you sell. So it's the order. It's the 80-20 rule. It's where is your value at risk. And the value in the content and being content it's what you do in what order to make the other bits make more sense. So you have to inject the visualization, the dream board, the happiness, the contentment, and the admin will fall out of that as a result of the order you address things.
No, the only other issue then becomes is it not anything to do with property and finance? Is it to do with the family and his wife's family connections?
And that's where you're going to love this, because we're saying these things. We're not saying this. Every mentor, Tony Robbins, anybody out there is saying, stop picking things in isolation. They're not in isolation. You're 5 or you're 4. I can't even remember them half the time. It's your health, your wealth, your finance, your family, your friends. They are the same thing. You've got to do all your 80-20s. For you to be happy here, you have to be working it there. If you're not happy in one, it will ripple to the other. And therefore, his finances is affecting the order of the move. Therefore, they have to keep on putting up with the unhappiness and the health and issues. And he was even saying there's drug pushers at the end of this road here. I go, why would you be waiting any more than 1 minute longer than you have to? I'd be gone. I will be Speedy Gonzalez out the door. You will not see me for dust. I will already be here and I'll be backfilling. I came down, I tried to finish a conversation on just in my line of talking. We have to bring it back to a binary. Are you going or not? It's a 1 or a 0. Are you leaving that country? Yes or no? You've got to make that critical path decision. Are you gone? I'm gone. Now it's how fast. He said he's going. Because even if it's bad here, good here, no. Are you staying or are you going? Because if you're staying, I don't want to have any more of those conversations. If you are going, it's how fast.
Yeah, but then there comes a point where it's now he has to make those decisions, because I know that there have been situations.
But you have to make the biggest one first. That's what I'm saying. The other ones that start falling in is if you're not going to make the decision of leave, then you're going to have this if then bouncing back and forward and never actually.
But then there comes a point where but he's the one that has to make that decision.
Exactly.
That's the thing, because I know that there have been situations where there are other family members who basically, there's a problem. You've listened to that problem. You've given them you've made some suggestions, and then sooner or later you find that they've gone back to exactly the same position they were in.
And I think that's why you're using the language of contextualization. Maybe
there's no point actually saying anything else at this point.
Yeah,
but no, I mean. And you actually, I know you get frustrated because you hear the story, because there's actually nothing you can do in that situation, and you kind of go, look, I know we've heard this before. We're going round and round in circles. I don't, there isn't any point unless they take the action.
There you go. I said I don't want to be having this conversation anymore. We had it 6 months ago. We had it a year ago. We have it now. What's changed in that time is sterling has dropped 20%. You've lost 20% of your value while trying to change a light bulb and fix pieces of admin, where we're missing the holistic, bigger picture of you weren't happy the whole journey. Not only your finances have gone down, you're less happy, and your perception of the future is with a hard Brexit. It ain't going to get any better. And even if it does, it's like you said, for anyone out there. We have to, it's the courage of your convictions. Make the decision. Stop doing the if-thens. You're either going or you're not. You're either doing it or you're not. When you make that decision, you don't have to worry about 50% of the problems, and then you have 50%, now you need to solve. So that was all, that what it came back, and I said, look, I'll come back in 6 months. You may still be there. I don't want to be the bad boy giving you the news of how you're up or you're down. I feel the journey is what we said. It's what content of a task list of things we have to do in what order to achieve this contentment. Well, how do we contextualize what that looks like that will make us the happiest, that we're happy with our decision to move and when we get to where we're going? So it's contextualizing the things, doing that vision of knowing where we're aiming and what the rewards are, and how we actually achieve those little steps along the way, that we're on the journey, we know we're achieving it, and we don't get frustrated that we made the wrong decision. So there's content. I think it's all the same. Contextualizing anything.
Yeah, I think because we're trying to be contented is the one thing, but when we look at the content of something, especially if it's a cookie jar, we then have to contextualize. Hang on a second, if I go and eat that cookie at this particular point in time, is the rubber tire around my belly going to get bigger, or should I actually not have the content?
We can go one step further, and we go. What used to be in the cookie jar on top of a shelf was the money. It was the petty cash jar. It was also, in the sense of, it was the cookies by stealth. It was, if there's money in the cookie jar, then there's money there to spend on something nice, because we've hidden that money away. It's cash. It's access to. We've saved it. We've squirreled it. That was the olden day, way the bank. There was no bank. It was, actually, believe it or not, no, it's gone. I have a cookie jar here on my desk somewhere. I don't know where it is. And that's where I kept my petty cash. If there's money in the jar, I have my cappuccino. If there's no petty cash in the jar, then tough. But we're back to contextualization of any content. And even we start talking about digital content, it's what's in the content. Is it value? Is it information? Is it inform, entertain? educate. It's it's going to consume my time, whoever that person is. For them to consume the content and the value of it, they've got to give it time to it, to whether it be listen, auditorial, or visualize, or just let it seep in. They've got to give over their time to absorb this content and take an action from it, or maybe do something with it. And are they happy? Are they content that they spent their time wisely on this other content?
Well, we're going through that kind of process of looking at the content that we've produced and contextualizing it for different audiences, if you like, because one of the things that we're finding is that once we're doing the raw material, which is the first half-hour program that we're doing, and then as we go back and examine it, we start to see that there's little gems in what we've been talking about, and we can pull those out and repurpose them into another little package which contextualizes them in a different way. And it's then available for other people to have as little nuggets to bite-sized cookies that we can actually then produce for them to go and enjoy. So, but we're also, part of the idea of contextualizing is we're looking at what meaning is there, how does it relate to us, how does it relate to other people? If we talked about targets the other day, about targeting people and triggers and all those kind of things, and we could suddenly say that there was a process when we're targeting and we're using the metaphor of the gun and shooting things in the air or randomly, or whether we become marksmen.
Are we hitting the target?
Are we hitting the target? We weren't actually trying to say,
the air and hoping to hit something.
We were in that context. We weren't actually talking about using a real gun to shoot somebody and kill them potentially. What we were trying to do was to understand what it is that they would be interested in, so that we could then target our energy towards producing something that they would find appealing. So the content made them feel contented that they would come and watch what we're doing and be happy to give up their time. So in a way, that's what we're trying. Hit the value home. Yeah, I think that's the key thing. So it is important that, I mean, we're finding that in the context of where we live and what we're doing at this particular point in time and where we are in history, that a lot of our content that we're producing is relevant to this particular period of time. We're hoping that some of our other experiences will bring things in to influence, like salt and pepper on top of it, just to give it a bit more flavor and see where it goes. But at the end of the day, it's specific to this particular point in time, and we will evolve and develop as we become more aware of how to improve certain things that we're actually doing and give meaning. We're all looking for meaning in what we're trying to do. We're trying to see the value of what it is that we can actually offer other people. And we're aiming for people that are in our age bracket or slightly younger, who have gone through life, seen that in their own story at the moment, they've worked for other people, they've earned a certain amount of money, but that's now under threat because of the way that things are changing. And they need to find a way to have purpose in their life that gives them meaning and feels that they're actually doing something that's valuable, that they can look back on and say, I did this, I did that, I did that. At the moment, we can now look back and say, we've produced 41 shows and all these other little mini shows that have come from it that we can actually repackage and do something. So we're now feeling more and more contented in what we're doing. But
we're very content with our content at the moment. But we want to hit it home. So we want to share the love. We want someone else to feel our happiness. We touched on this before. We want to share to be content bit, which is to share the love, to share the happiness, to share the value or the perception. And we're going, now I keep on using this word, oh, I love me so much. So it's mad. Am I this narcissistic that we're producing it, and then I go home and listen to it, and I'm late into the evening, I'm listening to my own voice. My wife walks by and goes, I can't stand the sound of you. At the best of times, now you're in a room listening to yourself. I'm not listening to myself. I'm listening to two blokes, George and Garvin, and they're coaching me and they're mentoring me and they're telling me it's okay to try new things, and if that doesn't work, try something else, and not to be afraid and to fight through fear and to the other side and find my courage and find my voice and listen and all these, I'm going, that's what I'm learning. I'm listening and learning and talking and I'm saying, and everything is saying it's okay. All I'm hearing now is go do, go try, go. And it's that little chatterbox is no longer chattering. He's he's got a degree in mentoring all of a sudden, to myself. And other people need to turn their chatterbox into their own personal coach. That's what you're meant to do. He's in charge of making you happy, or she. Whatever.
Well, if you think of what mentoring, coaching and counseling are all about, it's to actually give you the chance to talk things through. And it's through the talking it through, you hear yourself talking and you suddenly start to see answers to the problems that you have. Whereas the other person can't. They may see what the answers are, but if they tell you, it won't do you any good because you need to see it yourself. Now, one of the great things about what we're doing is that because we're recording these sessions, we now have an opportunity to go back over what we've said and see we can contextualize it because we see other bits of meaning inside it. We're now pulling out other things that suddenly, even when we said it, we may not have realized what it was that we were saying. And then when we hear ourselves back again, we kind of go, oh, right, now I understand that little bit. That makes sense. It didn't make sense beforehand. It didn't even make sense when I actually said it, but something came to mind that I felt that I had to say it. Now we can reevaluate and reflect upon what it is that we're seeing, because we are mirroring ourselves. We're seeing ourselves in the mirror, warts and all, and we can start to, normally we'd criticize ourselves because it isn't exactly a mirror image. We're seeing ourselves as other people see us. And the problem that we then have is that the first reaction that we have is we kind of go, ugh, that's not really me. There's something odd, because it's the flipped image of us. Like we're both using these cameras at the moment, and what they're showing us both is the mirror image, because that's what we normally see when we see in the mirror. But when we see ourselves flip the other way around, we feel a bit kind of that's not me, is it? But that's what other people see. It's the same as when we speak. If you listen to your voice being played back, it's not how you hear yourself, because you're hearing yourself through the bones in your jaws and through your flesh. What other people hear is what they're hearing now, is because that goes through the air. We hear it in a different way. So again, we're at odds with ourselves quite often because we see ourselves differently and we hear ourselves differently. But this gives us a chance to try and get over those barriers that stop us from actually projecting ourselves forward to other people, because we become so self-critical of what we are. We actually become so destructive of ourselves. Whereas this now gives us an opportunity, and which is why we should encourage other people to do it, is because it gives you a chance to stop being hard on yourself and start to give yourself a break and start to see that you have potential, you have gifts that you can offer other people. And that's what we're now trying to do in this venture.
And again, as I said, I think we're out of context to ourselves. That's in our vision board, in our mind. We're in the Truman Show, we're the star in our own show, yet we're not doing very well in this. An awful lot of us are going, we're the star, yet is this the show? I wouldn't be watching. I'd change channels myself. You're going, so therefore, but I'm not changing. That's back to this other chap. You can change channels. Do you want to move house? Do you want to move country? Do you want to move job? We think we're not happy, but that change in the channel is the change. It's that word, it's that transformation. It's the I'm not happy journey to I'm now going from not happy to change something, to do the work, get the effort, and then reap the new reward of I'm now happy again in this new context. But unless you contextualize what that new happy looks like, or what the current one is what's wrong with the current one, you don't end up with a tick list of, well, what do you need to change? Now, what's interesting in the last while was we're finding this language of 80-20 and Pareto principle, and also process, and the process of ourselves, and what we're doing an awful lot more of the work process. And both of us, I think, are finding that I was doing some exercise with my daughter and she's gone back to school, therefore now I'm waning, and that was working. I lost a stone, and now the wife is going, that's coming back, it's only 2 weeks. What happened to that process of health, wealth, mind and family? So the family and the health are now they're falling out of the vision board, and their context is not the same as it was before. They're not to the forefront. I need to reweight them so the other bits will be energized and all bits will move together. I'll be happy, wealthy and wise in my journey, by taking care of myself, my body, my mind, my family, my friends, and the work becomes the passion and the journey. They all are part of the same content jar. The cookies in the jar need to be contextualized. There's different flavors in there, but they all need to be in there. Keep the jar full and keep on refilling it when it gets empty.
Now, one of the things that we were talking about before, which was coming up, was this idea of being accountable. And I know that I have a certain way of working, and there is a certain amount of accountability. But one of the things that I think you've been saying to me, and I know my wife is now saying to me as well, is that you don't need to overdo it. It's back to that 80-20 thing. Now, there is so much that we do need to do, but it's putting it into perspective. It doesn't have to be done now. We will get around to it, but we need to make sure that we have those health things. So for example, this morning when I got up, I decided that there was half an hour I wanted to spend on the exercise bike, but I actually managed to watch a couple of programs of something just to keep my mind active while the body was trying to do its
I hope to God it wasn't
stuff.
more of our episodes now.
It was, I'm afraid. Yeah, there was an episode, one of our episodes I got to. I think it was, what was the one? It was
Triggers.
Triggers was one of the ones. Perfection was the other one. That may be something to do with it as well. But it was just this sense that, look, we don't need to overdo it. We don't need to overwork it. We need to get that work-life balance sorted out, and we still need to try and get that worked out, because all of these things can absorb us so much that we can be pumping out tons and tons of content, not be contented, and actually missed out on the contextualization of what we're actually trying to do, because we've lost the meaning and sense, because we've fallen back into those silos that we were trying to get away from before.
Now
do you know what I mean?
Because we're producing so much that that's what the job is. That's what makes us happy. It's not, no, the reason we were doing it all in the first place was to facilitate the other bits. And now it's the amount of, it's like, oh, there's now so much we could do that if it was there, we effectively have vision board. I need a staff of 10 just to deal with the stuff we're coming up with. On a content production side of potential value of story creation, or there's someone out there for this great little bit of animation or this story, and wouldn't that be great and wouldn't that be nice? There's no problem generating the idea or the creativity now. And I think I'm very contented with the fact that we are creative individuals, and that's not sort of blowing our own horn. We've opened that door through the artist's way and other ways. There's no problem. We've opened the flow. Now it's Niagara Falls. What the hell are we going to do with it? Because we have a little paddle boat with no oars, and we're going up Niagara Falls. We need to go backstream Amazon here and pick one little river and go, this is our river. This we can do. This is our actually subject matter expertise. This is our area to go play and own. We don't need to do it all. We can compete in any space. Where, under the 80-20 rule, do we most belong to play and be that perceived subject matter expert delivering the most value for under the 80-20 heading for this targeted audience we've yet to meet?
And I think what's interesting is that these are the challenges that we meet in doing these programs and in doing everything we're doing. We are discovering new methods of doing stuff, like the opening title sequences, but I'm enjoying that process. It doesn't seem like hard work. It's just the time goes past very quickly. But again, we still have to make sure that we keep ourselves well and don't overdo it. The other thing is we need to make sure that we don't pamper to what is the social media thing that will just gobble us up. And we'll get burnt out. And that's the one thing that we need to make sure that we don't do, is get burnt out. Because if we get burnt out, we end up stopping, we can't carry on, and then we've blown it anyway. So we've got to get that balance right. We've got to make sure that we're healthy, both mentally and physically. And we need to make sure that we have proper expectations of what we're actually producing, so that we don't kill ourselves, basically. And
there's lots of lovely words there. Now, I think you've just named 9 of our episodes. It's like, I want to be happy. We want to bring balance into what we're doing. Perfectionism. No, no, imperfectionism is perfectionism. We're perfectly imperfect, and that's fine. So
Triggers.
Fear, courage. We've touched on an awful lot of them in the sense of it's a language. Another one of them, I don't even think it was the name of a show, but I know perfectionism was unrealistic expectations. We have to, and that of ourselves, manage others' unrealistic expectations of us, and particularly of ourselves, and don't overly burden ourselves with things we have to do when we don't really have to, and no one really asked. And it might be, if we're putting that list of things in there, we're really trying to escape something else that is wanting our time and attention. And I do it all the time. If I have to do the taxes or the accounts, I will put 95 other items on the task list in front of it. I have managed to push that task out 9 months now to within a week of the deadline. And it's the one thing that would probably take me a few hours, but it's a different weight in my mind of dealing with it. And it's it should have been the opposite way around. Had I dealt with it 9 months ago, I would have 9 months of not thinking about it. It would have been done in a few hours, and it wasn't a mammoth task. It was a mindset. It was the order. It's the thing that's causing the worry, and it's causing the imbalance. So what we're finding is it's the language, and we're finding a nice language. And if you use it, everybody's using it. Everybody has a different weighting in that journey of happy to unhappy or back again, and courage and fear and perfection and imperfection. It affects everyone on the planet to a different weighting and degree based on the content in the jar of the cookies of your life of content, of what makes up your makeup of you and what flavor you are.
So as we now have to draw ourselves to an end so we don't overdo it and overkill ourselves, we've been talking about content, both whether you're contented in what you're doing, in producing a lot of media, which is what we're doing, and also understanding the context of why you're doing it, and also understanding the meaning behind it to why an audience would actually enjoy it. We hope you enjoyed this show, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one, which is going to be a big one because it's episode 42. And Garvin, 42 special for you.
No, I'm going to end on, I just can't help myself. I'm still stuck in cookie jar territory. I'm not a digestive. I'm triple chocolate chip. Be triple chocolate chip. You don't need to be rich tea plain, unless you want to be. It's your content, your life, your value.
Get the right context. Bye for now.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Do what it says on the tin. Follow and share.